One of my favorite things in film and television has always been the cold open. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the cold open, just watch any of my videos here on the channel. They all have a cold open. A cold open is basically a teaser sequence, a short intro to the plot that happens before the opening credits, before the opening title is shown on the screen of the episode or movie or video. That is a cold open, and we've all become familiar with them over the years. However, if you look online to try and discover the history of the cold open, you will find that that history is very poorly written. And I think it's time we recognize the true pioneers of the cold open. Now, anyone watching TV today is probably familiar with the cold open. It happens in so many television shows now that it's basically become standard. Anyone who's watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia knows that they have some of the funniest cold opens out there. The cold opens usually come to a smash cut ending going straight into the title of the episode, and the title of the episode is usually a direct joke on what just happened in the cold open. Saturday Night Live, of course, does cold opens every single week before calling out the title of the show and showing the credits, so everyone is probably slightly familiar with cold opens. But where did they start? How did it all get going, and who are the true pioneers of the form? Well, if you try and find out what the very first cold open was, you're probably going to see the title Crime Without Passion. That's a 1934 film written by and directed by both Ben Hecht and Charles MacArthur. Now, it's said to be the first cold open, but strictly speaking, it's not exactly the kind of cold open I would qualify. The reason for that is that opening credits, the cast list in particular, are seen before we get that cold open. But we also don't see the title of the film until the end of that cold open. So it's kind of a half cold open. The fact that the cast title appears before the short teaser sequence kind of disqualifies it in my book as a true cold open. But nonetheless, I understand that because it came before the title of the film, it can still be qualified as the first cold open. Now, the cold open for this movie, Crime Without Passion, 1934, is absolutely insane. And in and of itself could qualify as a great surrealistic short. I'm going to show you a bit of it right now and how it leads in to the title of the film. Now, Crime Without Passion aside, the best early smash cut cold open is probably Orson Welles' Journey into Fear from 1943. The film was directed by Norman Foster, but that was Welles' assistant, and Foster was working from extensive notes provided by Welles because Welles had to be in Brazil to work on the documentary he was making, It's All True. He was there for some of the film, but most of it he was not. However, in his conversations with Peter Bogdanovich, he talks about the cold open of the film and how he developed it, and the fact that he was unaware that there had been other movies out there with cold opens before. He said that if he had known that, he probably wouldn't have done it. The reason he did it was because he thought he was being the first person to do a cold open. But in a way, he still was. See, the cold open for Journey into Fear is the first true smash cut cold open. And smash cut cold opens is what I'm referring to here in this piece as the classic, standard, well-known cold open. A sequence that happens before the title is shown, that leads up to a basic crescendo, and then, boom, goes right into the title sequence. That's what Journey into Fear did. Let's watch it now. It's a hitman, an assassin, a paid killer, arming himself and combing his hair while listening to a record that keeps skipping. It's unsettling and unnerving because of that, and works beautifully. Here it is. Now, if you go to Wikipedia and look up Cold Open, right there it is, you will see a very, very general, basic overview of the Cold Open. And not to diss too hard on Wikipedia, it is a very good resource for a lot of information, but as a film historian and someone who has studied film since I was roughly 6 or 7 years old, I can tell you it's pretty wanting in its description of the Cold Open. In fact, the only television series they even mention from the 1950s is 77 Sunset Strip, which isn't exactly the best example. One, the cold opens for Sunset Strip were anomalous in a way, different than what we think of now as a proper cold open. What Sunset Strip did was show scenes from the middle of the episode at the very beginning, and then you'd go into the credits. The Outer Limits also did this. They would show a full scene that happens somewhere in the middle of the episode and then take you into the opening credits, leaving you wondering, wow, I wonder what was going on there, and I wonder how we're going to get to that scene. Later on, as in many, many, many decades later, this would be used in Breaking Bad, where you would see scenes of things that didn't really make any sense until you got all the way through the season, and those scenes finally came up within context. Further in the Wikipedia piece, they even mention Vince Gilligan of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and even say he's one of the masters of the form, which I do find slightly insulting because he was standing on the shoulders of so many giants who came before him. And that's my real problem with the Wikipedia entry on cold opens. It ignores the real pioneers of the cold open. Debuting on television a full month before Sunset Strip was the true pioneer of the smash cut cold open, Peter Gunn. It was a detective series developed by Blake Edwards, and it had some of the best smash cut cold opens that have ever been seen on television. I mean, even now. Its cold opens were fantastic. They drew you into the episode immediately and made you want to keep watching. And for anyone unfamiliar with 1950s television who thinks, oh, it was all just I Love Lucy and a bunch of really primitive dramas that just don't hold up today, you've got a lot to learn. And you should watch some of the cold opens from Peter Gunn to help in the learning process. Here's a couple of my favorites from season 1. Right out of the gate, this show had smash cut cold opens down cold. Watch this one from the first season, in which a man walks into his apartment, looks up at something that the viewer can't see, is immediately caught in a chokehold by an unknown assailant, and then unalived, as they say. That is a cold, cold open. Here's another cold open from season 1 of Peter Gunn, in which a boxer is the subject of a drive-by. Blake Edwards developed the cold opens for Peter Gunn to immediately draw the viewer into the show. And Blake Edwards should absolutely be credited as one of the pioneers of the smash cut cold open. Look, I got no problem saying Vince Gilligan's really good at cold opens, as the Wikipedia piece says. But guys, you need to mention Peter Gunn. Maybe after this episode, they will. As for film, well, there were cold opens going all the way back to the 30s, as we talked about originally. But, just like with Peter Gunn, it was the smash cut cold open of one movie in particular that really made the difference. The smash cut cold open in movies really came to life with a series of movies starting in the early 1960s. This series did not have a cold open for its first entry. It did have a cold open for its second, but that cold open wasn't a smash cut cold open. It had a smash cut cold open for its third entry, and it is still one of the greatest cold opens in cinematic history. The series? James Bond. The movie? Goldfinger. Now, Dr. No didn't really have a cold open, nor did it really have the kind of title sequence we're used to seeing in a James Bond movie. But the second film in the James Bond series, From Russia with Love, did have a cold open. However, importantly, it wasn't a smash cut cold open. At the end of the sequence, which I'll show now, you simply see a fade out, and then it begins the credits. Goldfinger, on the other hand, has a smash cut cold open, and very importantly, the cold open itself has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the movie. The Goldfinger cold open is almost just like a standalone James Bond short film. And it added one more very important piece. It added the final quip by James Bond before the smash cut. From the opening of James Bond blowing up the plant to the finale with the bathtub and the James Bond quip, going directly into the opening credits and the blast of horns with Goldfinger's theme song, Goldfinger has one of the best smash cut cold opens in all of movie history. And even if they've become more refined and more honed over the years, they got where they've got today thanks to Goldfinger.
Shocking. Positively shocking.
Now, after Peter Gunn and Goldfinger, cold opens became almost standard, especially in action movies, television shows, sitcoms, soap operas. Most of them had some form of cold open by the 1960s on. And today, cold opens are practically every movie that exists, because so many movies today don't even have opening credits. Technically, they all have cold opens. I mean, you just watch the movie until you get to the closing credits, so I guess the whole movie's kind of a cold open. But most movies today have some kind of a sequence that occurs before you see the title of the film. But because of the loss of traditional opening credits, the smash cut cold open has kind of gone away, so to speak. It still exists, obviously, especially in television, but I miss the old days when we had a full opening credits that were preceded by an incredible short teaser sequence that blasts the audience right into the action. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and a subscribe. If you didn't enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe anyway. If you couldn't stand any word that came out of my mouth during this video, please give it a like and subscribe. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because I'm not a faceless channel. I'm not using a ChatGPT script with an AI voice narrator giving you a bunch of AI slop. It really is important, more important now than ever, that we support YouTube channels everywhere that have real creators presenting real opinions in a real setting. So please give it a like and subscribe. It really helps. And as always, drive safely.